And we're on.
We're on.
Alrighty.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Trailblazers Podcast, episode number 2. Today we have our special guest, retired Colonel Robert E. Licciardi. Some of you might say that we're related, which we are.
It's a rumor.
Just a rumor. But, yeah. How you doing, Dad?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad we're doing this today.
Yes, it's great to have you on our show. We've been looking forward to this for a while now.
You're our first guest, so
Yes, you're our first distinguished guest.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.
Right. Yeah, all right. So we'll start out with his baseball card. His name is, as I said before, Robert Licciardi, also known as Dad or Uncle Rob.
Uncle Rob.
His measurement is 5'6". His tonnage is 152 pounds. His generation is Gen X. His alma mater is Texas A&M. His vehicle is La Fonda. And his BA measurement is 275.
275. We had to take off a little bit to drive La Fonda. Because if you drive a big white van, you can't. It's
Well, I think they added that more for comic relief than because the car actually drives in the garage. It's too big.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll start off with a bunch of questions as we do every podcast. Well, the first one is, obviously you were in the Air Force for 23 years?
Almost 27.
27 years.
Right.
Almost 27 years. So as a teenager, did you always want to be an Air Force officer? Like when you're in high school, like, is that what you wanted to be?
I did. Yeah. In fact, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be in the Air Force, wanted to fly jets. I had the opportunity to do that, as a matter of fact. So during my teenage years and high school and all, that was one of the main reasons I chose Texas A&M college, because I wanted to fly planes, and I knew that you could do it going through the Corps Cadets out there and being a member of the ROTC detachment. It's a 24/7 ROTC detachment out there, and so it was a natural follow-on to high school.
Yeah, and that's a great school, obviously, right? Gig'em Ags.
Absolutely superb. In fact, I've got my boots right over here.
Oh, yeah.
So
I should have gotten them and put them up in the back.
I know, yeah. You should have put it right up. That would be great.
That would have been
actually funny.
I got something a little bit better here.
There you go. The ring.
Here we go. Yeah.
So it's legit.
Yeah, I was at our friend's house, and our friend, she's like totally Hawaiian. She doesn't know anything about A&M, obviously. But I guess someone that's renting their studio in the garage, I was walking through the garage, and then there's like a studio with a glass door. And in the glass door, I saw these boots. I was like, those are senior boots from A&M. And I went to go ask Auntie Jeanette, that's her name. And she was like, so did Daniel, did he go to A&M? He was like, oh, yeah, he loves A&M. And he was talking about A&M. And I was like, that's so crazy that here in Hawaii, but I guess there are Aggies everywhere, right? I know it's a big community.
It is. It's a pretty cool community, too. I mean, it's a huge, huge school.
Yeah.
We kind of scatter to the four winds, as it were, after you graduate, and you run across them at various events. There's several different events during the course of a year that you could run into. The big one is, of course, the 21st of April of every year, which is
the muster.
Anniversary of the Battle of San Jacinto. Is when we celebrate muster. And that's where all Aggies, wherever they're at throughout the world, together to remember the Ags who have died throughout the year. So it's normally the place where you meet most of them. Otherwise, you'll see them on personnel. When I was in active duty, you'd see them on personnel files. Down here in Texas, there's guys with A&M license plates on their vehicles where you run into ring all the time. It's kind of nice to be back home because after 30 years on the road, you just run into them very, very sporadically. And now they're all over the place here in San Antonio area, which is awesome.
So, did you find it pretty easy to get into A&M? Was it pretty competitive or?
It was, well, so it's a lot tougher now to get into A&M, I think, than it was for me. I mean, I had a pretty decent GPA because mostly I had really smart friends that helped me But
Uh-oh.
I had to have certain grades and certain
Uh-huh.
SAT scores, and so I was able to get into A&M, and then made a bunch of really good friends while I was out there. But yeah, it was a good entry. The process was pretty straightforward at that time. It was a lot more straightforward back then than it is now.
Yeah. And now, did you go for an ROTC scholarship, or did you just do it all out of pocket?
I didn't. I'm literally first generation college. I was and completely clueless. I just went to college because I knew everybody else had to go to college. I knew I wanted to fly jets.
Yeah.
And I got to A&M and ultimately was able to do all that, but it didn't work out the way I'd originally planned. We'll get to that in a little bit, I'm pretty sure. But A&M was the right thing at the right time for me based on what I knew. Was incredibly little. So
yeah. So
poster child for giving anybody hope.
How was life at A&M? How was life being a fish? What was it like?
It was fantastic, and it was absolutely hideous
at the same time.
It's like this dual-edged sword. It was fantastic. You're totally free, quote unquote. Meaning you're just out from the house, but you got people breathing down your neck 24/7. During the week, and then the weekend comes, and you're able to kind of break away. On fire cuts and everything, but being a freshman was awesome. It was really what I needed at the time. It gave me something to really strive towards. It was very, very demanding physically and very demanding mentally between the scholastics and that out with the harassment, the good-natured harassment that you had while you're a freshman at A&M. You had 18 or so people doing everything they could to get into your face to keep you humble and to help you understand what it meant to be a member of the Corps Cadets out there. And so it was a blast. It was an absolute blast. I really didn't sleep much, and my grades suffered a little bit, the first semester. But able to pull it out. It worked out.
That's great. Yeah, that's what everyone wants to do, right? Or not everyone, but it's definitely one of the schools I want to go to. Do you have any regrets going to A&M? Do you have any?
Oh no, A&M was the exact right thing for me at the time. Truth be told, I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy because I wanted to fly jets and Air Force Academy. Well, Air Force Academy had other plans. They had in line before I was.
Yeah, that's true.
So I wound up going the A&M route, but man, it was exactly what I needed at the time, and frankly was able to really embrace it, and had a blast while I really plugged in not only the Corps but academics and stuff.
Yeah,
wasn't the most stellar student, but I was pretty steady, and it worked out.
That's good. And do you have any good stories, like some good memories from there?
I have way more than you got time for, and very few that I'd like to get put out on public domain. But
that's true. Sorry.
I will tell you that probably my favorite part of A&M was always football season and bonfire cuts.
Oh yeah,
I think that was the most fun. While I was at A&M, was the bonfire cuts, and that's just on the Corps Cadet side. But the very best, singular best thing about Texas A&M is where I met my beautiful wife.
Of course.
We met through intramural volleyball, and she was absolutely just, and she's gotten prettier, But that was the biggest thing that I was most happy. My greatest treasure coming out of that school. So it's Amy, and then probably my ring, boots. Finally going through final review and being mission complete, having done as well as you could while you're in the Corps. So
nice. So I'll take the next few questions. So what made you choose the Air Force specifically? Was it just because Air Force always flew like most of the jets? Like you don't want to be a Navy aviator, or what was it?
I wanted to. I just want to fly jets. I really want to fly planes, and I had the opportunity to do that for about 10 months out of 12, and then that wound up terminating. But I think my favorite part about all that was soloing out in the T-38 and then soloing in formation in the T-38, being trusted with a plane like that.
That's great.
Going out there, but
that's some great stuff.
Work out. I didn't want to eventually get my wings. That was what my goal was. But then after that was over with, I had the opportunity to continue on, obviously with active duty, and I kind of joked a little bit before about poster child for giving anybody hope in the Air Force for folks to do good things, and I was able to salvage what was. Other than that, a pretty unsuccessful aviation career.
I mean,
cyberspace world, and started doing some work in that area. It worked out great.
Nice. So, what are some of your favorite memories from flight school then?
Favorite memories from flight school were, it's like I said, soloing out in the T-38, and then solo out in formation. That was just.
Yeah, that's
the other great thing so there's two other things. So that was one thing. That probably the most fantastic thing about flight school was that I got a son out of the deal, and in fact, my eldest son was born the day I was supposed to graduate. And
so it's like a win-lose.
It was a triple whammy for me that day. So and then so that was that. Plus, I also made a really good friend while I was out of there, and Tony Stratton, who's a wing commander right now for Alaska. And so Tony was a very, very powerful influence on me, helped me enormously with UPT. I did struggle with it, obviously, but made great friends with him. And we've been in contact. In fact, we saw him when we were living in Hawaii. He came up to visit with his wife a couple of times and stayed out there at Bellows. And anyway, so that was it. And,
nice.
That's great. That's like the dream, right? To fly jets, especially to solo in a T-38. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, it was pretty neat while it lasted.
Yeah, so you have 27 plus year career in the Air Force as an officer. What would you say were some of the career highlights that you had?
Yeah, so balance that out with a little bit with the negatives, so the highs were, like I said, flying training, was a real high. The low was being terminated from that program, so that was probably the highs and lows as far as that is concerned. But over the course of the career there was 14 different assignments, 16 total moves. Able to have 8 children during that time period. We had 2 overseas tours. I had 1 year deployment. I was able to fly in the F-15B, the F-16B, and F-15E. 37, flew the T-38. Got to ride as a passenger in the C-141, in the KC-10, and the C-17, on the C-130 more times than I cared to. Got to ride in a UH-1 Iroquois, flew in a CH-47 Chinook, flew on the C-32, the C-37, and the C-40. There was a lot of flying while I was on active duty, mostly as passenger, but I did get some flying time, obviously. But those were some highlights. Lived many different places. You heard from the assignments and stuff. Pull up a bio if you really want to see it, but. Being able to see the world and meet so many wonderful people and work with them, for them, and to mentor them as well was just remarkably fantastic. It was great.
You also had one memorable flight on Air Force too, right? That was with Auntie Amy.
I did. It was a real gift. There was a training flight that was taking place, and I was able to fly Space A on a C-37, and it was a absolutely fantastic trip.
That's awesome.
I was going to mention, I wrote a couple of notes down because you were kind enough to share a couple of the questions. I never missed the birth of a baby. That is remarkable. Because all the traveling and stuff we did, I was fortunate in that regards.
Wow.
My wife, my family, and my parents were in attendance for all of my senior ranks, basically field grade promotions. They were there for that.
Mm-hmm.
A chance to see an awful lot of my airmen get promoted to senior master sergeant, chief master sergeant, several to lieutenant colonel, major lieutenant colonel, a few to colonel, and also a few others I've seen that have become general officers.
Wow.
Two of them in particular that I know of who were promoted that were classmates of mine when I was in pilot training. So it's great to see them.
Wow.
Got to work directly with some of the greatest talent I've ever seen. Experienced an awful lot of high highs and low lows. But again, marriage, promotion, children.
Man.
One cool thing when I was a lieutenant, I got to play drums in a rock and roll band.
Oh yeah.
At Mount Rushmore. It's pretty cool.
that's definitely a high.
Yeah. Play it out at Mount Rushmore. That's kind of neat. Can't do it anymore.
Yeah, and you made full bird, and that's definitely a huge accomplishment, right? Did you think did it take a lot of effort, or were you able kind of just to ride it, or how was that journey?
Funny to hear a young man say, "Hey, did you make colonel just by kind of riding it out?" Pretty cool. Yeah. So it's something you always think about. Promotion is something you always want to be striving towards, but what really happens is you get surrounded by people that are really gifted and talented in many different areas, and you get to ride alongside with them in a lot of regards, sometimes directed, sometimes being directed. But at the end of the day, I think if you make the right decisions for the right reasons, you're able to benefit from that. And I think that was more than likely.
Yeah.
So pretty fun.
For sure. So after being in the Air Force for, as you said before, 27 years, how was the transition to the civilian life? That must have been a huge change.
It was, you've been wearing a uniform for about 31 years at that point, if you include Texas at the time. And, now you got the whole clothing thing to worry about. I mean, I know superficial, goofy thing to worry about, but the reality is, I got the COVID hair going, you see. But the reality is, as you're fixing to make a major career change, there are thousands of things that fly through your brain at a very rapid rate. And to use a surfing analogy, Kanan, I don't know if you can relate to surfing at all. It's kind of like you're going to find yourself in the crash zone if you're not watching the sets closely, right? So you're either paddling out towards the wave, or you're paddling to catch the wave, and if you're ready and you're not prepared, you're going to get rolled, and chances are you're going to get banged up a little bit. But if you can avoid getting rolled by a 6-8 foot Hawaiian coming out of V-land, you want to avoid it. That preparation work took place, but I also had some great friends that I made along the way that helped me with that transition. And there are very few people that actually come off of active duty that don't have some people that help them, and that's probably the biggest. Just having people that would help you as you transition, things to think about, getting your resume in order, figuring out how to dress properly, things to be looking at as far as putting the packages together, and which companies you wanted to work for, what you wanted to look like. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, a little analysis, and a lot more. So
and then you also were able to get like the real dream job. You come here to Hawaii almost every 2 months, and
the current situation notwithstanding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I did have a dream job. I had 4 criteria when I got out of the military that I was looking for in a company, and I got all 4 of them in spades with the company that I currently work with. And by virtue of that, I'm able to come out and spend a lot of time working with most of the folks that I used to work with prior, while I was on active duty out here in Hawaii in the Pacific. So it was a real grace, a real gift to be able to do so. I think you're frozen.
I believe we're having technical difficulties with Kaden. So we'll move on to the next question. What made you move back to Texas after Hawaii? I mean, you retire in Hawaii. Who would ever want to leave there?
Well, there's a part of me that is still on that island. Given my druthers, I would have rather have moved all of my family to the island, stayed there. But our primary decision for leaving was based upon family, because family was here. This is a really long story. Just cut to the chase. We were able to spend time with Amy's mother that we never ever would have had the opportunity to do had we not made the decision to come back. And unfortunately, she passed away very, very unexpectedly back in January of 2019. And had we not made that decision, we would have been in Hawaii at the time when she had passed, and then there would have been terrible. It just would have been a very bad situation. So I alluded a little bit earlier to make the right decisions, make the right decisions for the right reasons. Ours was to go back for family, and had we not made that call to go back to Texas at the time, we never would have had the opportunity to spend with her that we had. And by virtue of that, my parents now live within 20 minutes of us instead of the 4.5 hours where it used to be.
Yeah, of flying.
Yeah.
So it's a real gift, a real grace, an enormous blessing for us to be close to family, for the kids, as well as be close to friends that we've met along the way out here. So it doesn't make it any easier to see guys like y'all, but we take care of that as we can.
Yeah, and so you have 8 kids. I mean, like, there's no other way to put. How's that? What is it like having 8 kids? I don't even.
Well, the good news is, you don't get them all at once.
Yeah.
When they come in,
Builds in.
You can. I mean, I've seen some people in the news decade or two ago. There's an octomom. She had like 8 kids at one time. Like that's like a litter of puppies. I mean, my gosh, I can't even imagine 8 at one time. We had 3 in diapers at one time, and I was like,
no.
So that's just a lot of movement. It's a lot of mess. It's also a lot of fantasticness. And so they don't come at one time. You have the first one, and you're like, I could always see, I could see having 2, but I can't see beyond 2. And then we'd have 2, and I can see 3, but not beyond 3. Play that out.
Yeah.
Eventually, that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
These kids have been fantastic. 6 boys and 2 girls. And what happens with these guys is as they get a little bit older, they start taking care of each other. They play together. They help each other, and it's not fully on mom and dad all the time. Everything.
Definitely.
And so they kind of cooperate to graduate. We all grow together as a family, and we grow like very much like you guys do as a herd in a lot of regards. So it works. It worked out well for us, and God never gives you more than you can handle.
Well,
sometimes you're like, are you sure? But,
yeah.
So obviously you had a very illustrious career, and but then you also had this big family. So how did you balance that? I mean, that's a big plate how did you?
That's a pretty question, Kaden. And I appreciate that. I will tell you that it's not a question I haven't heard before over the course of my life, and normally not from a 16-year-old or so. I will tell you very straight up that it is a prioritization thing. And I have told this, many of my airmen when I was in command would ask similar things. And it's really a prioritization sequence. And so I've got to call it your vertical alignment. I learned this many years ago, but you have God, you have your wife, you have your family, you have your job, and then down there below is yourself. So it's really 5, I guess. But if you kind of roll God, your wife and family, your job and yourself in that lower tier, as long as decisions that you're making are sort of ordered with that as the priority, fall into place, because it is truly impossible to plan and to control everything that takes place. So I mentioned before, you make the best decisions you can with the information that you got.
Yeah.
Intention, and then that balance sort of comes there. It's been, I think, probably the most important part is having your wife, for me, it's my wife, who is fully supportive of what I'm going, what I have to do, and talking with her, keeping her in the loop as best I can on what's happening so that she understands. And then really just drawing some lines and letting things that are not quite as important. Sometimes things have to just wait. One person's emergency may not necessarily be another person's, but if it's an emergency, then it's got to get immediate attention. But otherwise, other things that are lesser of importance, life, limb, or is blood going to get spilled? Those kinds of things, you got to get on those right away. But if you don't have a situation where somebody's life's going to get lost or somebody's future is not going to be negatively impacted, then a lot of times that stuff can wait. And so it's been a little bit of a prioritization sequence, but really it's let's call it that vertical alignment has been very, very helpful in balancing all that out.
So, I mean, that's a lot it's kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose, right? And then, so
long
now
conversation. It's a really long conversation. Yeah. I mean, that's just like that's your outline, but there's like 15 minutes of discussion between each one of those points,
So you moved to Texas, right? And then you built a house. How did that's even.
You talk about a challenge. So since we've been to Texas, we got here in June of 18. Back with us.
Yeah, that was there.
Got here in June of 18, and we've had since then. I guess I should say since May of 18, we've had 4 addresses. So we are now at our permanent address. We moved and got into the house that we had built out here in end of October. But we've had 4 addresses.
That's great.
Addresses. Three of the moves we did fully and wholly on our own. So there's a lot of effort behind that, between taking kids to school and choreographing, and sequencing in, stuff that's being moved, and then getting a car and trying to pick it up at the airport and then load the kids in it and drive it back down here and all. So there's a lot of logistics that's associated with moving anywhere, but especially coming from Hawaii back to Texas.
And 4 times.
Yeah. So it was, but, again, we have been very, very blessed in that regard. We got a great company that helped us to build the house. And one of the things that he told us was there are no emergencies in building a home.
What is that?
There were at least 2 events out here where I would have argued that great. But he was right, because it was just a matter of, all right, we'll just fix it. This is we get it fixed.
I guess that's true. Yeah.
And then so really the thing about building a home that created enormous stress was just timelines and trying to things up. And if you were able to build flexibility into a timeline, then everything else would begin to fall into place. But that was singularly the most difficult part, is trying to get closing to come right on the heels of construction, to come right on the heels of insurance, to come right on the heels of, I mean, there's so many things.
A lot of,
So, but, you learn a lot in the process, and it works out. The house is absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for you guys.
It's a beautiful house.
See it. It's when we built this thing, we took the very best that my wife and I could remember of all the homes we've lived in, especially during the 27 years while I was on active duty. We were married for about 23 of them maybe. But 25, I guess, coming up on 2. Okay. Anyway.
Uh-oh.
She wasn't with me the first 2 years. We got married in 93, but I was on active duty for 2 years prior to that. But anyway.
Oh, yeah.
We took the very best of everything we could remember out of all those homes, and we poured them into the design of this one.
It's a lot of homes.
Now, and the family is sort of reaping the benefits of that right now. In fact, Ben, loft that we never would have not, come out here and seen it. You'll get a chance to see it too when you come.
Yes, definitely. Can't wait.
So this is like our dream home. This is our headquarters for the family. This is like a respite for anybody that that is part of our ohana to come into, be it blood or family extended. And it is a absolutely fantastic place. I love it. And I get goosebumps coming home every day out here. It's absolutely wonderful.
That's definitely a great accomplishment. I mean, like, some people don't even have houses, and you are, that's just, it's not really enough words for that. But I guess it's kind of time to start wrapping it up. But one more question. Fly, Eagles, fly?
I have no idea. No, you're going to have to edit this out. As a Cowboys fan, it's very difficult for me to. I've been looking down a lot and looking just so I don't have to make eye contact.
Go Birds, baby.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, it's a great rivalry, but we always win. We're the better team.
Congratulations on your Super Bowl win a few years ago. So
that was good. Good year. So, thank you for being on our podcast, and also
thanks for coming on.
For always giving us great tips. I mean, we're really like the ideal. You just have it done. Really, there's not really.
Yeah.
It's like the statue, like, be like this man right there.
There's so many. It's like I'm a poster child for giving anybody hope. Great grace, great blessings, wonderful people we've worked with, and a family that I just can't say enough good things about. Plus, you bunch of guys out there have been gracious, with us, folding us into your family as quickly as you have, and as you have. I mean, half the food we eat every night is every time we eat rice. It's like Cortezes are with us. I can't wait for you to see it. Can't wait to grill for you when you get here.
Definitely.
All righty. Well, thanks for agreeing to come on up. Come on. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and see you guys next time.
All right.
Out.
Gig 'em.
Gig 'em, Hags.